Good morning, Standard 6. Today I have a lesson that's really very interesting. The name of the lesson is The Mystery of the Missing Ring. Now, this lesson was written by Nicholas Bentley. He is a British writer. They tell us that he was a cartoonist. He used to draw cartoons for magazines. Now, here in this story, you have a kind of adventure. Now, when you talk about an adventure, it doesn't mean climbing up the hill, jumping off a bridge, or diving into a deep down sea. Anything can be an adventure. Now, today's adventure is not climbing up a hill, is not jumping off a cliff, nothing like that. It is something very interesting, but you can call it an adventure. Now, here in this story, you have characters. The characters are one Mr. Rayner. Now, this Rayner has a jewelry shop, and in this shop, he sells antique jewelry. When you say antique jewelry, it is very old jewelry, but it is very valuable. So, he says, you have the Mr. Rayner who is the owner of this antique jewelry shop. You have workers in this shop, and they are Mr. Morris and Miss Suskind. Besides these three people, you have two other people, that is a man and a woman. Now, this story begins in which Miss Suskind is opening the locker where the gold is kept, and Mr. Morris is taking and arranging the jewelry on the showcase so that people can see it. So he is displaying the jewelry in the shop. Now, what happens is, as he is displaying the jewelry in the shop, he is taking out the jewelry from the showcase and keeping it in the parts of the shop, like you call it, at the window of the shop. So as he is doing that, he observes that a girl is standing opposite his shop and looking into an undertaker's shop. Now, an undertaker is a person who does work when a person dies. Like, he conducts a funeral, he builds coffins, he does the whole funeral ceremony when a person dies. Now, in that shop, all you can find is a coffin box or a jar. And in this undertaker shop, there was nothing except there were two jars. So Mr. Morris was wondering why this girl is looking and staring into an undertaker shop where there is nothing attractive to look at. But he kept on observing her staring into the shop. And then he tells Miss Suskind, look at that girl. She is peeping and looking into that shop. What is there to see in that shop? So Miss Suskind makes fun of him and says, you are very observant. That means you look at everything and you are very, very curious to know, or you keep noticing everything that happens around you. At that very moment, Miss Suskind locks the locker from where all the jewelry is taken out. And at that very moment, one person with a blue suit and a bright colored tie, very stylishly dressed up, he comes, and you will find that in his mouth he has a chewing gum, a bubble gum in his mouth. So what he does is, he comes to the shop, he looks very modern with a bubble gum in his mouth, and he comes to Mr. Morris. And then he tells Mr. Morris, I want to buy a ring. As soon as Mr. Morris looks at him, he takes out trays from under the takes out trays from underneath, trays of rings from underneath, and shows it to the man. There are 3 trays on the table. Mr. Morris takes 3 trays and keeps it on the table for this man in the blue suit to look. And as this man is looking at the rings, he likes some of the rings, and then he picks up a ring and says, this ring is very pretty. So Morris says, yeah, the man who did this, that is the craftsman who did this. You need to praise him because it is so beautiful. And Mr. Morris describes it like, look at the diamonds, the rubies, and he looks at the ring. It is like a flower shaped ring. It is having the shape of a flower. But this man says, yeah, it looks very beautiful, but I think it is very, very costly. Then after some time, what he does is, this blue suit man, he tells Mr. Morris, please can you show me that fourth tray which is underneath? Show me those rings. So Mr. Morris bends down and picks out the fourth tray and keeps it on the table. As he is keeping the fourth tray on the table, he suddenly realizes that the diamond ring, which was like a flower, is missing. So he gets a shock. Mr. Morris wonders where the ring went. When he bent down, somewhere the ring went, where it went. So he doubts that this blue suit man must have taken the ring. So immediately he tells this customer, he tells him, sir, if you like that flower ring and you have decided that ring, give it to me, I'll put it in a box and give it to you. So this man, this customer, he says, I have not decided still what ring I would like to take, and I wanted to see more rings. I did not take that ring. Okay, so immediately what Mr. Morris does, he takes the fourth tray and he keeps it off underneath. He takes all the trays and keeps it down inside so that more rings should not get lost. And then he calls his other partner, Miss Susskind, and he says, come here, please come here, he says. And then they're trying to find the ring and they're not able to find the ring. So Mr. Morris tells Miss Susskind, please go and call the owner of the shop. Who is the owner? Mr. Rayner. So go and call Mr. Rayner. As soon as Miss Susskind calls Mr. Rayner is coming. That time Miss Susskind says to the customer in the blue suit, she tells him, see if the ring has fallen in any of your folds of your suit. That means, see anywhere where your shirt is folded or your pant is folded, it must have fallen into that. Just check. This fellow gets very angry. He becomes red in color, and then he just bends down to check if anywhere it has fallen. And then he looks back at this lady and at the lady in the shop and says, you think I have robbed this ring? You're blaming me? At that time, Mr. Rayner, the owner, he comes. No, sir, I'm not blaming you. But then he says, I have to find out where my ring has got lost, because I have to write to the insurance company so that they will pay the money back. And before that, I have to search perfectly whether the ring is anywhere around, because I cannot be playing with the insurance company because they have to pay the money back. And the owner tells this fellow, you have to check very carefully, minutely, very carefully in your clothes. So what we'll do, the owner says, you come with me, I will check your clothes. And he takes this customer into the shop to check inside his office, to check this customer's clothes properly and see whether the ring is anywhere on this person. The man is very angry. This blue suit fellow is very angry. And then he tells the owner, you cannot treat a customer like this. You're treating me very badly. As I have robbed the ring, you cannot treat me so badly. As soon as Mr. Rayner takes this blue suit man into the shop, you will find that one girl, the same girl who was looking into that other shop, she comes into this gold shop. She comes into the gold shop and she is dressed. How she is dressed? She has a long yellow coat with small black squares on it, and her hair is yellow in color. And then you will find that she has no hat. That means she is not very rich to look at. And coming into a gold shop and not looking so rich, so automatically Mr. Morris looked at her and told Miss Susskind, this is the girl I saw who was looking into that other shop. I don't think she can buy any gold from here or any jewelry from here. So Miss Susskind slowly says, maybe she came to sell her gold because she needs money. Then after some time they wait, and this girl with the yellow coat, she digs in her bag. She searches, and suddenly she removes a small piece of paper. In that paper there's a brooch. Now when you say a brooch, it is a small show kind of a thing that ladies put on their clothes. It looks beautiful. So that brooch, she wanted to get it repaired. So this girl takes the brooch and gives it to Mr. Morris and says, "Sir, can you repair my brooch?" As soon as she says, "Can you repair my brooch?" Mr. Morris says, "I'm sorry, madam, we do not do repairs." That means this shop doesn't do repairs. Ayyo, this girl thinks, "Okay, thank you so much," she says. And then she digs into her bag, and as she's digging and keeping her bag on the thing and digging, that paper which had the brooch, that falls onto Mr. Morris's side. When Mr. Morris bends to pick up the paper, soon what she does is, as soon as Mr. Morris decides to, she picks the paper, as soon as Mr. Morris bends down to pick the paper, then he says, "This is what happened." So he remembers what happened that time, and he says, the same thing happened. So Miss Suskin says, "What same thing happened?" And at that time, this girl, what she does, she takes that paper from Mr. Morris, puts it in her bag, and she starts walking. As soon as she starts walking out of the shop, Mr. Morris says, "Madam, stop immediately," she says. One minute more, madam," he says. She doesn't listen. She just starts walking. She's going out of the shop. Immediately Mr. Morris says, "Stop right now, otherwise I will press the alarm, that bell." So he says, immediately what she does is, she stops and turns and looks at this Mr. Morris. As soon as she looks at Mr. Morris says, "See, I don't want to create any problem for you. I don't want others to know what is happening. Please, there is the ring is in your left pocket. Please give that ring to me." Immediately, as soon as he says that, her face becomes so thin and scared. She gets so frightened that she puts her hand into the pocket and gives the ring and just walks out of the shop. As soon as she walks out of the shop, Mr. Rayner, the owner, he brings that blue coat man, and he tells Mr. Morris and Miss Suskin, "I cannot find anything on him. The ring is not there on him." As soon as the owner says the ring is not on this blue suit man, immediately Mr. Morris says, "We have found the ring. It is here." When Mr. Morris says, "We found the ring," this blue coat man, he, without saying a word, he goes fast out of the shop. He walks out of the shop like a shot from a gun, like a bullet from a gun. He walks quickly out of that. And then after that, you will find that Mr. Morris tells Mr. Rayner that we have found the ring. So Mr. Rayner is so happy, the owner, that we found the ring, and then he asks Mr. Morris, "How did you get the ring?" As soon as he says, "How did you get the ring?" Mr. Morris starts telling him how he got the ring. Then he tells, first when this blue coat man came into the shop, he looked so modernized that Mr. Morris was thinking, how such a modern man is coming and searching for a gold or a jewelry in an antique shop, in a shop that sells old gold or old jewelry. So that made him doubt the blue suit man. So he said, "I wonder why this blue suit fellow has come into our shop where we sell old jewelry." Another thing what Mr. Morris noticed was, this girl was just roaming in front of the shop. Loitering is roaming in front of the shop. And as soon as the owner of the gold shop took this blue suit man into the office to check him, this girl entered the shop. Now she came and she asked, "Can you repair my brooch?" Everybody in the city knows that this jeweler shop do not repair anything. They don't do any repairs. So how did this girl come to repair some ordinary brooch? From this, he even noticed that this suit person who came in, he was left-handed. And this girl came into the shop, and even though she was right handed, she was doing all the things with her left hand, and she kept her hand exactly where this man had kept her hand, where the blue suited man had kept a suit man had kept his hand. She kept her hand there only. So that is one more thing I doubted on this girl. In spite of being right hand, she used her left hand and kept it where the man had kept the left hand. Mr. Morris said that before keeping the trays back and under the table and trying to take the fourth tray, he saw that the diamond ring there. But then when he picked it up, it was when he put the fourth tray on the table, it was missing. So immediately he thought how it got missing. One more thing Mr. Morris noticed was that this man was chewing bubble gum, and suddenly he stopped. When the ring was missing, he stopped chewing the bubble gum. At that time Mr. Morris was thinking, where this fellow has thrown the bubble gum. You cannot swallow the bubble gum. There was no dustbin to spit the bubble gum into. Where this fellow has kept the bubble gum. So immediately he thought that this fellow must have stuck it somewhere under the table. So it must be somewhere there. And when he went to look for the bubble gum, at that time he saw that the ring's design was on the bubble gum, but the ring wasn't there. By that time the girl had already taken the ring from there, but he could see the design of the ring pressed onto the bubble gum. So then he immediately realized that this girl had already taken the ring. And then he caught hold of this girl and asked her for the ring. This is how he found out who was the criminal in this case. That Miss Susskind was saying, I thought both of you, I thought somewhere there will be a fight in the shop. First time when you asked the man to check himself, I thought he'll fight. And the second time when you called the girl and told her, stop for a minute, I thought they'll fight with you. But then they said the problem was solved, and it was a real wonderful adventure, but it was very, very, it ended in a very happy way. I hope you understood the lesson. It's just about where the ring went and how they got the ring. So the criminal actually stuck the ring to a bubble gum, and he told the girl to take the ring from the bubble gum, and they thought they would escape. But then they got the ring, but the criminals went without being caught, but people knew that they were the criminals. Okay, thank you.